up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at noon, President Beck calls on global leaders to make concerted efforts to denuclearize North Korea as the first step to realize a nuclear weapons-free world. A defiant North Korea vows to strengthen its nuclear capability, accusing the U.S. of threatening its existence. Plus, Malaysia concludes the missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 crashed into the Indian Ocean. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Ojin in Seoul.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. We begin in The Hague, where President Park Geun-hye has addressed world leaders gathered for the opening ceremony of the Nuclear Security Summit.
Focusing on nuclear security, President Beck pointed to North Korea, saying that denuclearization should first start on the Korean Peninsula. Our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun filed this report from the Netherlands.
President Park Geun-hye has laid out a systematic plan to enhance nuclear security worldwide. In a four-point proposal made during her opening remarks at the Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague, the president said the international community should take an integrated approach towards nuclear security, disarmament, and non-proliferation. She referred to Washington and Moscow's initiative that turned nuclear arms materials into nuclear fuel, saying it was a prime example of turning swords into plowshares. The Korean leader then said there's a need for regional cooperation on nuclear security, such as in Northeast Asia, where 23% of the world's nuclear power plants are in operation. President Park also talked about the need for countries to share technology and experiences to level the playing field. Lastly, she said more measures are required to prevent cyber terror attacks on nuclear power plants. President Park also made a point of commending international efforts to strengthen nuclear security. She mentioned countries voluntarily allowing the International Atomic Energy Agency to inspect their nuclear material protection systems. She also voiced concern about North Korea's nuclear materials getting into the hands of terrorist organizations and nuclear safety.
지금 북한의 영변에는 많은 핵시설이 집중되어 있는데 한 건물에서 화재가 나면 체르노빌보다 더 심각한 핵 재앙으로 이어질 것이라는 지적입니다.
The South Korean leader used the opportunity to cast light on the dangers of North Korea's nuclear development program. She said a nuclear-free Korean peninsula should be the first step towards a world without nuclear arms. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, The Hague.
North Korea's nuclear program was also high on the agenda of summit talks between the leaders of the United States and China in The Hague on Monday. President Barack Obama and President Xi Jinping reaffirmed that North Korea should not be in possession of nuclear weapons and promised to continue close consultations on the matter. While they saw eye to eye on the overall North Korean nuclear issue, the same cannot be said about their stances on resuming the six-party talks. Beijing wants to reopen discussions sooner rather than later, while Washington wants Pyongyang to take concrete steps towards denuclearization first before talks resume. Now, it's been 6 years since the last round of six-party talks on North Korea's nuclear program was held, and North Korea says the blame for the delay falls on the shoulders of the United States. Heaping pointed words on Washington, the deputy chief of Pyongyang's UN mission says the U.S. is keeping the two Koreas from improving relations. Our UDN tells us more.
North Korea has pointed the finger squarely at the United States for the failed resumption of the six-party talks, which are aimed at ending the North's nuclear weapons program. Speaking at a news conference at the United Nations on Monday, Pyongyang's deputy UN ambassador Ri Dong-il said the U.S. was using his country's nuclear program as a political bargaining chip.
As long as the U.S. is continuing nuclear blackmails against the DPRK, United States should clearly know the fact that additional measures will continue to be taken by the DPRK in order to demonstrate the power of the self-defensive nuclear deterrent.
He said the U.S. was to blame for the stalled six-party talks, citing their refusal to meet without preconditions. The six-party talks, which involve China, Japan, Russia, the U.S., and the two Koreas, are aimed at disarming North Korea of its nuclear weapons. The talks have been stalled since late 2008. China has been making a push in recent months to restart the talks, but the U.S. remains insistent that North Korea must first dismantle its nuclear program before talks can continue. Lee also said the United States' refusal to halt annual joint military drills with South Korea are undermining prospects for improved relations between the two Koreas. The latest criticisms follow an accusation on March 14th that the U.S. is setting up a human rights conspiracy against North Korea. That came in response to a U.S. human rights report that called out the North for numerous violations. 유리안, 아리랑 뉴스.
Wednesday marks the 4th anniversary of North Korea's torpedo attack on the South Korean warship Cheonan, which killed 46 South Korean sailors. Seoul swiftly imposed tough sanctions on the North that proved to have quite an impact on the North Korean economy. But as our Kim Hyun-bin reports, some say it's time and they are lifted.
46 brave souls were lost when the South Korean warship Cheonan was sunk by a torpedo attack blamed on North Korea in 2010. 2 months later, economic sanctions called the 524 measures were placed against the North that prevent any and all exchanges between the two Koreas.
It's not just general trade. It's all processing materials that are banned from in and out of North Korea.
The measures had a substantial effect. All cross-border trading came to an abrupt end, with the exception of factory operations at the Kaesong Industrial Complex. The amount of exports to South Korea dropped from an average of $41 million a month before the sanctions were put in place to $3.7 million a month afterward. To fill the gap, Pyongyang began relying more heavily on China and selling off more of its natural resources. While that has mitigated the effects of the 524 measures, it's had other effects on the North Korean economy.
Natural resources are key strategic materials for the North, so it's worth noting that former leader Kim Jong-il banned exports of these products.
Citing improving inter-Korean relations, some in the South are now calling for the 524 measures to be lifted. But the South Korean government says that won't happen until Pyongyang takes responsibility for past actions.
Regarding the Cheonan issue, North Korea says they weren't involved. Pyongyang needs to take responsibility for Cheonan and apologize for its actions.
Seoul added that North Korea also needs to stop making threats and carrying out provocations if it wants the 524 measures to be lifted. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, if all goes according to plan, South Korea will put pen to paper on a deal to purchase 40 F-35A fighter jets from the United States later this year. Kim Min-ji has more on the special sales process, which could save the South Korean government hundreds of millions of dollars.
Korea has announced plans to buy 40 F-35A fifth-generation fighter jets from Lockheed Martin later this year. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Monday that it will go through the U.S. government's foreign military sales process, known as FMS. The FMS process gives a foreign country the ability to pay the amount specified, set by the U.S. government at the time of delivery, not when the contract is signed. Seoul will complete negotiations with Washington over prices and conditions in the third quarter. Korea's total budget for the fighter jet project is approximately 7.4 trillion won, or roughly $6.8 billion US. A recent assessment by Lockheed Martin suggested that the price for one F-35A could drop to $80 million by 2019, when production is in full swing. It said that could eventually mean lower prices for international buyers, including Korea. The defense agency said it will monitor the development of the F-35, which has not been tested on the battlefield yet, and whether it fits with all of Korea's military requirements. With an eye on North Korea, the agency also approved a plan to purchase an unspecified number of RQ-4 Global Hawk unmanned aerial surveillance vehicles through FMS.
The high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicle can operate in all weather conditions and distinguish an object as small as 0.3 meters in size, while carrying 1,400 kilograms of internal payload. Experts say the state-of-art spy plane fits well with South Korea's missile defense system called the Kill Chain, which is designed to detect impending missile attacks and launch preemptive strikes. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now to the highly debated issue of telemedicine here in Korea. The nation's cabinet has just passed, in fact, the revised Telemedicine Act for doctors and patients, despite a pushback from the medical community. Telemedicine is a clinical care that uses communication technologies such as smartphones and other advanced media to remove the need for face-to-face consultations between doctors and patients. The government says the change will improve welfare services and bring down medical costs. Some doctors say, though, it will diminish their quality of care. And in fact, thousands of doctors went on strike earlier this month in protest of this bill. The bill now goes to the National Assembly for a full vote. The government hopes the act will go into effect in 2015. Now, we are just one day away from the official launch of a new political party here in Korea, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, which will hold an inauguration ceremony on Wednesday, was the main topic of conversation at a policy debate forum at the National Assembly this morning. Our political correspondent Ji Myung-gil reports.
The coalition party that will be led by Democratic Party leader Kim Han-gil and independent lawmaker An Chol-soo aims to bring about an era of new politics. But what is new politics? That was the very title of a policy debate forum at the National Assembly on Tuesday morning. Supporters of the newly formed New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party, or NPAD, joined with academics and lawmakers to discuss the future of the political landscape in Korea. Professor Bang Myung-lim of Yonsei University said new politics must start with breaking old political practices. He said the NPAD needs to embrace the ideologies of rational conservatives and introspective progressives. Experts at the forum said the new party should pursue a democratic market economy that promotes fair competition between large conglomerates and small firms. They said a priority should also be placed on building a fair welfare state that helps the people. Professor Moon Jin-young from Hague University asked that the government make greater efforts to ensure there are no blind spots in the current welfare system. He referred to a recent case in the country where a family of 3 committed suicide together because of financial hardships. Pundits urged the government to keep President Park Geun-hye's welfare promises that include providing a monthly allowance of some $185 to all senior citizens over the age of 65. The participants also voiced a need to prepare for a peaceful unification of the two Koreas while also keeping an emphasis on national security and denuclearizing the North. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broom and Jin-ju.
I'm Jin-ju with
market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics.
After more than 2 weeks of hoping and praying, on Monday, all hope was dashed. The relatives of the missing passengers of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 have been told that the ill-fated flight came down somewhere in the remote southern Indian Ocean with no chance anyone survived. On top of that, search operations have been suspended for the rest of the day due to poor weather conditions in the search area. For more on the story, here's Shin Se-min.
17 days of pent-up despair and rage exploded in a Beijing hotel conference room on Monday as relatives of the Chinese passengers on board Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 were given the news many feared, but they didn't want to believe.
I want to tell the journalists, the information they just sent, it is not true.
In a damning statement given to the media, the families accused Malaysia Airlines and the Malaysian government and military of being, quote, the real executioners who killed the missing jet passengers. They said the shameless behavior misguided and delayed rescue actions, wasting a large quantity of human resources and materials and lost valuable time for the rescue effort. The angry reaction came after Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak told the world's media Monday that the plane is assumed to have crashed more than 2,000 kilometers west of Australian city of Perth with no chance anyone survived.
This is a remote location, far from any possible landing sites. It is therefore with deep sadness and regret that I must inform you that according to this new data, flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
The announcement was based on fresh satellite analysis from Britain, which had employed a type of analysis never before used in an investigation of this sort. Australia says true objects have been spotted and that a naval vessel hoped to recover them soon. The latest in a line of leads stemmed from a French satellite image that showed possible debris in the remote seas southwest of Australia. Despite an extensive multinational search for the missing plane, no wreckage has been retrieved. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korea is pushing to wrap up the second round of negotiations on joining the U.S.-led Trans-Pacific Partnership, also more commonly known as TPP. A high-level official from Seoul's Trade Ministry says Korea plans to round up the deal next month after holding a series of two-way meetings with participating countries. The TPP is known to be an effort by the U.S. to increase its economic presence in the Asia-Pacific region. Negotiations for the trade deal currently involve 12 countries. The Korean government finished its first round of consultations with the TPP nations early this month after first expressing its interest to join late last year. And Korea is continuing to broaden its economic foothold in the ever-expanding European Union. The government will sign an additional protocol to Korea's existing free trade deal with the EU on Tuesday evening to bring Croatia under the pact. Seoul's Trade Ministry says the revision of the Korea-EU FTA comes as Croatia joined the 28-nation trading bloc in July of last year. Korea will provide almost all of the FTA's trade benefits to Croatia, with just a few exceptions in the service sector. Korea and the EU signed a tentative deal recognizing Croatia's inclusion last November.
Korea's largest automaker is making a push for a larger stake in the world market. Hyundai Motor is eyeing the United States in particular, where the company hopes the new model of its highly popular Sonata range will lead the way. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Hyundai Motor hopes the new Sonata will help it fight back a sizable global market share from its competitors, Toyota and Honda. The new Sonata model is the first from the Korean automaker since 2009. It features a hexagonal grille, longer wheelbase, and more ergonomic cushion design for seats. Fuel efficiency-wise, the new Sonata can run 12.1 kilometers per liter of gasoline, which is 0.2 kilometers more than the previous model. The price tag ranging between $21,000 and $28,000 depending on the model and engine size, makes it pricier than its predecessor. Hyundai says the new price reflects a significant improvement in technology and safety features.
You get a sense of the premium quality in every detail. It offers a thrilling driving experience not yet seen in other mid-sized cars. The new Sonata is safer and equipped with user-oriented technologies.
Since the Sonata model was first introduced in 1985, more than 6.8 million units have been sold, and it remains Hyundai's best-selling model along with the Elantra. The Korean automaker hopes the new Sonata will improve its fortunes. Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors had to shell out around $400 million last year to settle lawsuits in the United States for overstating the fuel economy ratings of their vehicles. Chung Mong-gu, the head of Hyundai Kia Automotive Group, forecasts the weakest sale growth in 8 years for 2014, large part due to the appreciation of the Korean currency. Hyundai Motor says it plans to sell 228,000 new Sonatas this year, 63,000 in Korea and 165,000 overseas. Kim Jiang, Arirang News.
Now, as the dust continues to settle on the worst customer information leak in Korea's history, regulators say they'll make it mandatory for credit card companies to send payment statements to customers via text messages from the first half of this year. The Financial Services Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service says the new system will allow customers to quickly cancel payments or receive compensation if their card is used by scammers. Around 70% of credit card users in Korea currently use the text alarm service. In another measure, regulators say new customers will be directed to sign up through a secure tablet PC at financial institutions, so their information is directly stored in the company's database. The personal information of more than 20 million people in Korea was leaked in January. And now for a look at some of the other international headlines we are following at this hour. We're going to turn it over to our Eunice Kim, who is standing by at the news center. Hello, Eunice.
Hi, guys.
Eunice, we hear that the group of 7 nations have decided to go without Russia in their summits and other international gatherings.
That's right. The crisis in Ukraine is casting a shadow over the nuclear security summit in The Hague as the leaders of the G7, that's the U.S., the 4 major European economies of Germany, France, Britain, and Italy, as well as Canada and Japan, all announced they would withdraw from the G8 meeting planned for in Sochi and hold their own summit this year in Brussels. They condemned what they called, quote, Russia's illegal attempt to annex Crimea and promised to work together to cut their dependence on Russian gas and oil in the long term. In response, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov shrugged off the snub and the possibility of Russia's expulsion from the alliance as, quote, no great tragedy, adding that Moscow was not clinging to that format. Meanwhile, back in Ukraine, Kiev has ordered its remaining troops and their families out of Crimea in a move effectively seen as a white flag to Russian forces. Meanwhile, ahead of the nuclear security summit, Japan announced it will hand over to the U.S. hundreds of kilograms of nuclear material that could be used to create bombs. This includes all highly enriched uranium and separated plutonium, which can serve as the fissile material for a nuclear bomb's core. The joint agreement is in line with global efforts to minimize stocks of the potentially dangerous materials and outline plans for the United States, once received, to convert them into less sensitive forms. 529 defendants received the death sentence in an Egyptian court Monday on charges that they murdered a policeman and attacked people and property, among others. They are among some 1,200 supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood on trial. This follows riots that took place during sit-ins in Cairo supporting President Mohamed Morsi, who was ousted in July last year. Defendants are expected to appeal. And over in Washington State, United States, search crews say they have found more bodies among the rubble of the weekend's massive mudslides, bringing the death toll to 14. The number of missing persons have also jumped to now 176 from the initially reported 18. That's more than half of the town of Oso, a population which has a population of 180, according to a 2010 census report. County Emergency Management Director John Pennington said the figure could fall, though, as some missing person reports could have overlapped.
Well, it's been raining in Jeju since early this morning, and it's now spreading to other regions. Up to 80 millimeters of rain is forecast in Jeju, and between 5 to 40 millimeters in other regions leading into tomorrow. But the Seoul metro area will not receive any showers today, but do expect overcast skies. And compared to yesterday, it will feel warmer in the upper parts of the peninsula today, but cooler down south due to cloud coverage and showers. And interestingly, this round of rain will actually really warm things up because after the rain, temperatures will soar to numbers that are more typical for early May across the region. So do keep that in mind, and here are the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will rise to 18, Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 19 and 16, while Busan gets up to 17. Now for other regions, down on Jeju and Dokdo will peak at 17, and Daejeon will climb up to 18, while the top temperature on Mount Keungang will be at 11. Well, that's all for me today, and back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jian, and those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I will be back at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.